right, am I live? There I am. All right, here we go. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Helena Krusec and I'm the Senior Corporate Venture Associate for Capital Factory. We are going to talk today about the Defense Innovation Ask Me Anything. So get prepared for some really exciting content as we gear up to tell you about what's in store for the next year. Give me one moment here. Aaron, can you pull up my screen? I want to make sure, there we go. I want to make sure my slide deck was working. As I mentioned, today we're going to be hosting an AMA. The point of an AMA is Ask Me Anything, which means it's going to be useless unless you ask questions. So please feel free to chime in whenever you have them, whatever inspiration so strikes you. Again, my name is Helena Krusec. I work on our corporate strategy team, and I'm the defense lead for all things here at Capital Factory. Here's a little bit about me. Y'all have probably seen me before. I've done a couple of these defense AMAs, and I'm here to answer any of the questions that you have, but enough about me. The point of today's discussion is to introduce to you our brand new VP of Industrial Capacity Expansion. Industrial Expansion in the federal and defense practice. So Jorge, if you get a chance to hop up on camera, I'd love for you to just say hello to everyone and say a couple of words about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Helena. I really appreciate the intro. So yeah, I know my title is just kind of long and weird, but it really means simple. I'm the new Vice President for Federal Defense Ventures and Industrial Capacity Expansion. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to help the rest of the startup kind of community combined with the federal government so we can help expand the economic areas where we need to meet national security objectives. So just a little bit about me. I just came onto the team not too long ago. I would say about 2 weeks now, Helena. So I was previously working for the Air Force under AFWERX, where I was head of their business strategy and development for the AFWERX community, and really kind of helping to pull together a lot of the new cyber programming that's happening now across the DoD. So I really used Air Force partnership in order to build that out. So I come with 20 years of contracting experience in the United States Air Force, having worked all things, from large weapon systems to very simple and the things that we need day to day, things that we need to survive, like food, water, shelter, right? Those things that are near and dear to our soldiers, airmen, and sailors when they deploy. So I've really seen the whole cradle to grave on all levels of acquisitions. And now I'm super excited to have made a transition over to Capital Factory to help our startup community and our venture capital community better connect with the federal government and the needs that our warfighters need. So a really exciting time, and it's a pleasure to be able to host you today and hopefully answer some questions and what we're going to be doing going forward with the Federal and Defense Ventures part of Capital Factory, and how the Center for Defense Innovation will hopefully develop out over the next 6 to 12 months. So I'll hand it right back to you, Helena. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jorge. And I apologize in advance for butchering that title. You'd think after 2 weeks of working with you, I've said it over text, I've written it out, I know it in person, backwards and forwards, but you asked me to sound it out and I'll mess it up every time. So we're super excited to have you. I know it's been like drinking from the fire hose ever since you've gotten here, but that's a good thing because there's a ton of activity happening around the Center for Defense Innovation, and we're excited to tell you all about it here today. So first things first, wanted to tell those who aren't familiar with Capital Factory just a little bit more about us. Capital Factory, we consider ourselves the center of gravity for entrepreneurs in Texas and the #1 startup state in Texas. Startup state in the US, excuse me. We like to consider ourselves the lightning rod for activity. Previously, that was all in person, and now we're doing this virtually online. We like to bring hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs, programmers, designers, and more together with the goal of helping them to meet their next mentor, investors, employees, and customers. Really with the goal of helping them build and scale here in Texas. We have a really strong economy, and our goal, both industrial capacity expansion is part of this goal, but also our mission and sort of reason for being is to help entrepreneurs to build and scale successful companies here. We have this this manifesto, we like to call this Texas Startup Manifesto, which is this ideology essentially that Texas is one mega startup city, as opposed to, having the different parts of the Texas Triangle, Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, the rest of the state fighting for different resources. We come together and bring those resources under one roof so that entrepreneurs can build and succeed here. And again, that's something that we call the Texas Startup Manifesto. We've updated some bullets here, and you should keep your eye out for the Texas Startup Manifesto 2.0, which is coming out in the next couple of months. And we really wanted to underline what was unique about what Capital Factory is doing, particularly in the context of defense and our various centers of gravity that we're creating. Jorge, do you want to say a couple of words on this?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Helena. Well, I'm going to tell you, the Texas Startup Manifesto is something that really caught my eye over 2 years ago when I was on the federal side. The reason it did that is it's really unique in the fact that it's really trying to create a real collaborative ecosystem, not across one city or one organization, but how do you create that collaboration across a network of networks? And that's really what Startup Manifesto really focuses on. And that was the message that Josh Baer and Capital Factory was putting out over the last 2 years. But like everything else, we have to mature, we have to grow. What is the next step in the Texas Startup Manifesto? And 2.0 is about to be published. I'm not sure if it's been published yet or not, Helena, but
it's coming up. It'll be
coming up. It's very close. I got to see, just a little glimpse as to where that's going. But basically what it's showing is 2.0 is expanding multiple centers of gravity across cities in Texas, which is really, really awesome, because what this does is it makes Texas a physical center of gravity, not just a city, not just 2 cities, the 3, but all of Texas, and the center of gravity that attracts a pipeline of talent, investors, and customers writ large, right? To be able to help incubate and bring together the new entrepreneurs and technologies that are coming and helping to scale those into large, viable, and strong businesses for the American economy. So Texas Startup Manifesto 2.0 is going to be just remarkable. Now, if we also look at that, it's like collectively, when we talk about centers of gravity, you've already heard about the Center for Defense Innovation, which obviously we're going to go into a growth and expansion period here over the next few months. But you also need to know that there are other centers of gravity that Capital Factory is working to build, and that already has kind of in play. So we'll talk a little bit about those in a little bit, but that hopefully with all those various centers of gravity working together, that will help ignite the economic expansion, not only here in Texas, but also commercial innovation across industry sectors that affect the entire nation. So this is a really exciting time. Texas Manifesto 2.0 is going to be extremely unique. And I am 100% on board with making sure we succeed where others have tried. And then the thing is, we can't do things on our own. And I think what's important about Texas Manifesto is that we will bring all those others that have been trying, and we're going to collectively pull them all together, and we're going to truly be a center of gravity to really help the nation move forward with our startups and the great innovations that you bring to bear. So again, coupled with federal and defense, academic labs, universities, and investors, our centers of gravity are definitely going to be poised in the future to really bring something special to not only our startups, our federal partners, and corporate partners writ large. So really exciting time. Thank you, Helena. Appreciate it for that minute.
Absolutely. And this is something I definitely encourage folks to ask questions about. We'll get back to this and touch on it later on in the discussion, but put a bookmark in that, the academia, the labs, and the other investors that are involved in collisions around the center of gravity. This is going to be a massively important point. So here's the link to that Texas Startup Manifesto. That's the hyperlink where you can find this online. I believe we'll be updating to version 2.0 imminently. So please, if you get a chance, bookmark it, read it, get to know it. It's the Bible that outlines why we do what we do.
Exactly. And just to that point, that map though, again, I want to just reiterate, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and many other communities surrounding those metropolises are definitely going to be part of this. So, whether you're in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, we're here for you. Capital Factory will be there to partner with you and help bring defense innovation to bear, along with the other centers of gravity. So really exciting. I love this map because it really shows how we're connecting the ecosystem together.
Absolutely. So this is a nice sort of summary of some of the topics that Jorge and I were just touching on. Obviously, you're here to learn about the Center of Defense Innovation, but we've got other really exciting projects in the works around health innovation, autonomy and robotics, and outer space. Those are all projects to keep your eye out for in the next year as we announce them and get ready to dig our teeth into these topics. So Capital Factory, I wanted to bring it back to what it is that Capital Factory does day to day and how you plug into this ecosystem. The primary way that we work with entrepreneurs, with startups, is through Capital Factory Ventures. And in doing this, we bring in startups every single month. We do this 10 times a month in a regular cycle to get to interview with us. And really, we're looking for the best of all startups in the state of Texas. We're agnostic to all tech. As long as you are a technology company, we want to work with you. And the goal of this relationship with Capital Factory Ventures is to help introduce you to the most important people in your life that are going to help you to scale your company. That being mentors, customers, press, and talent, as well as a really robust investor relations network that spans not just the state, but the rest of the country. A bullet that's not in here that really should be in here is also our Innovation Council, helping you plug into corporate partners, Fortune 500. There are these large organizations that have a mandate to work with startups, and they need to learn how to do that and how to embrace innovation. We do that via our Innovation Council, which is a group of 10 to 12 large corporate partners who have an active interest in working with the Texas startup ecosystem. And now, one of the things that we've brought with the Center for Defense Innovation are these relationships with big government organizations. I mentioned earlier the Innovation Council. We've got the Defense Innovation Unit and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency as flagship members of the Innovation Council. We've brought a lot of folks into the ecosystem, whether that be the Air Force, Army, DARPA. We've had them come to visit. We've had folks from the Navy, you name it. If you're an active duty military, you've probably heard about Capital Factory's ecosystems, because we're trying to build innovation for defense tech. And we use all of that as resources for our portfolio of companies. So essentially what that means is that if you want to plug into a customer, a partner, someone that can help you get meaningful traction to get to the next level, you're going to do that here at Capital Factory. And what we're asking from you is to be a part of this community. We need more startups, bottom line up front.
That's right. We need more startups, because every time we look at those various centers, not just Center for Defense Innovation, but the Center for Health Innovation, the Autonomy and Robotics and Tech Space, they're all going to need startups. And not only that, the Center for Defense Innovation is going to have spokes into those various centers, because all of DoD, all of federal government have equities to go find, technologies in all those areas, to include health and maybe other areas that we just don't think about DoD or federal governments really looking into to find deal flow and sign contracts in. So really a great opportunity. Bottom line, just like Helena says, we need more startups. So as we open up these centers, if you're here on the line, just know that you will have an opportunity either now or in the very near future to really kind of put where your niche area is into one of these centers and really help to scale out what you're trying to do for your country. Thanks.
Awesome. So Jorge, we're already started to get some questions, and I know that you and I we're running through this at light speed, but I'd love to take a moment to just stop and think about some of these, because this is one of the audience members, Eric Fromm, brought up a really interesting point. And one of the things he mentioned is that over the last year, CF Ventures has brought a large national audience of defense-focused and dual-use companies. How does that impact CF Ventures and our Texas focus?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have attracted a lot of national audience. And, obviously the national audience, when we talk about defense, it doesn't matter whether you're in Texas, whether you're in California, New York, or even Michigan, right? We have defense partners that are, and entrepreneurs that are coming from all over the country that might have the idea that's going to be the next big thing for, the defense industry, or scaling new processes or technologies across the DoD. So how does that impact Ventures Texas focus? Is it really, it's actually complementary. if we have all these different, businesses from all of the other states that can become part of the ecosystem, either directly in Texas, and, it'd be great if they moved to Texas, right? Because it seems like there's a big exodus from many, many states to Texas. Texas being the Lone Star state is awesome, but we don't need to be a Lone Star, right? We can definitely be, part of the larger system that helps innovate and ignite things that can spiral spiral businesses that grow out into other areas, into other states, into other regions. So I really do think that the focus in Texas is important because Texas does have a very large economy, and it does have a lot of propensity, a lot of different companies in different industry sectors that can help be a catalyst to attract the talent, the ideas that are happening in other states as well. Now, it's not to take away from the states. I think what we could do is, again, be complementary to those states. And I think if we work together as a country, then that's where we're going to meet a lot of the national security needs that are driven by the economy, right? If we don't work together as a country, no one state's going to, be able to pull us out of some of the urgent needs that the government has. So I think, again, Texas can be a strong catalyst, a strong center of gravity to, if not harbor a lot of the solutions, but be a strong gravity to help underpin or complement, some of the work that's happening in regions outside of Texas. So great question, Eric. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add to this, I've been working with the ventures team now for 2 years, and one thing I'd like to one thing I'd like to add to this is that I don't think that this changes our thesis on Texas whatsoever. We absolutely still want to work with all of the best companies in the state of Texas, but we now also recognize this is something that COVID kicked off. It's opened a Pandora's box that we recognize and we're now trying to work with, is that there's talent distributed all over the nation. And we are trying to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs who want to use the resources that are here. The resources that are here are the military, right? We have Austin is this new hub for the Army. This is something that didn't exist, 3 or 4 years ago. So we want to make sure that as we're bringing companies in, regardless of whether or not they're in Texas, if they're in Seattle or Boston, we have companies now in the ventures portfolio who aren't necessarily in Texas, but that are leveraging the Texas economy and ecosystem. And that's our goal at the end of the day, is to strengthen that, give them obviously, resources and opportunities to come to Texas and use the ecosystem and meet investors and meet mentors. But at the end of the day, it's about tapping into the ecosystem that makes Texas strong. So great question. Thank you, Eric. I'm going to go on to the next slide here. So we're going to dial it in a little bit more and talk a bit more about what is here, the federal and defense ecosystem. There's a lot of folks that have taken up residence in our space. This started back in, I can't remember what first year that was, but that happened with SecDef Ash Carter, I believe 2016, when he came to Capitol Factory and put this flag down here and said, we need to be focusing on other parts of the country for non-traditionals, for finding innovation and innovating the government. There was a couple of early partners that came here with them. Jorge, I don't know if you want to talk through these next couple of slides, but AFWorks, one of our good friends and partners here in the Capitol Factory space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say just kind of late 2017, AFWorks really showed up in spades over at Capitol Factory, where Air Force was partnered at the time with Lieutenant General Quas, who needed innovation in the pilot training front, right? How do we get more pilots trained? How do we do it more effectively, more efficiently? How can we even change the paradigm of training pilots for the shortage of pilots that the Air Force was facing back at that time, and I think they still are to this day. So AFWorks came and partnered with AETC and Capitol Factory in order to bring some ideas and some demand really from our entrepreneurs in the virtual space, right, in the software space, to say how can we bring some of that new technology to bear in the flight training side of the house for the Air Force. So that's where kind of AFWorks started, grew its baseline. Not to, it's a very long, complicated story, but the thing is, they did a lot of great work because that was a catalyst for the Air Force to really take a look at innovation differently and how they could better connect with our startup community and help fund some of the ideas that Pilot Training Next at the time was finding with the startup community. At the time, there was not a really great mechanism to help fund and bring in some of these startups into that Pilot Training Next program that happened a few years ago. But in time, we learned. And that's where we started to look at the SBIR program and how that program was being utilized and how it was actually designed to be able to provide seed funding to the startups. So how did we unlock that? And that's where AFWorks really came in, where we came together as a team, as an Air Force, and said, how do we start unlocking some of these federal programs to be more relevant to our startup community? So this was a great opportunity, and AFWorks themselves, they're still here in the building. I know with COVID, there's a lot of operational kind of, everybody kind of scaled back. We're doing a lot of things remotely, but, God willing, as soon as, COVID starts to recede and things start to come together, I see that they will come back in full force and almost take a hybrid approach. We're going to take a lot of things we learned during COVID, and AFWorks themselves, I think, are going to be a very strong presence and continue to be a strong presence at Capital Factory moving forward. So we can move on to the next slide. I think we have the Texas Military Department, another strong partner that was very instrumental in actually attracting AFWorks and AETC to Capital Factory. So for those of you who don't know, the Texas Military Department is what a lot of people commonly refer to as the Texas Air National Guard and the Texas National Guard. Both are Army and Air Force components that provide, the state relief and also federal relief whenever, our nation's call comes to bear. And we've got a lot of great military talent that have been great supporters of not only the innovation space, but also of Capital Factory over the last 2 or 3 years. And I know that Texas Military Department has TMDX, which is an office right there on the 8th floor, I believe. They also are very accessible and always willing to partner with our startup community. So don't miss out on TMDX up on the 8th floor whenever you have an opportunity, because they've got great people there in the state that also could use your solutions. Next slide. And then obviously a lot of us know about Army Futures Command. They're embedded right in Capital Factory as well. They've got an entire, I think it's the, as you walk into the 8th floor, the entire right wing with Army Applications Laboratory, and Army Futures Command is just down the street from Capital Factory. So another great partner at Capital Factory with their sole mission is to look for that new innovation technologies and how that innovative technology can move the Army mission forward. So another great partner there. So back over to you, Helena.
Great. And one thing I'd also like to add to this is that, the goal of them being embedded in the Capital Factory space is so that they can have an active place where you don't have to have a security clearance to come in and have conversations with folks. This is the unclassified version of what they're doing. They want to be able to have an open space for you to come in and bring ideas to them and not have to be behind the wall of security ecosystem. So them taking up residence, embedded in our spaces, being active participants in the 8th floor and always showing up and taking meetings with companies in our ecosystem has made them just a tremendous member of the community. And we're very glad to have them.
Awesome. Yeah, as well, actually, let's go to this slide. And then there's a question that just popped up that we can take an address real quick. But go ahead. I'll let you.
Yeah.
In this slide, Helen.
Oh, good. Yeah. So this in the context of, Army Futures Command, we've had many high-ranking generals and people come through this space to see what we're working on here and comment on the innovation ecosystem that we've built. And General Murray very famously has said that what we're doing at Capital Factory is not replicated anywhere in the United States, particularly in the defense innovation ecosystem. So that was a huge cosign for what we're doing and a proof point that what we're doing here mattered. We started this in 2018, and when we first built the Center for Defense Innovation, it was really very reactive, right? We said, let's see what we can build. Let's try to help 1 to 2 companies win 1 or 2 government grants and just see what happens. We spent all of 2018 doing that, and come 2019, we actually found that we did slightly better than the anticipated goals. We ended up actually having over 30 companies winning over $60 million in federal contracting opportunities, which is a pretty high performance metric, if I do say so myself, slightly better than 1 to 2. And that was really just the start. Since then, we have kicked off our Cyber Accelerator powered by Microsoft. Our last cohort for the 20.1 cycle had 24 companies participating. And right now we're doing slightly better than the national average. That program of 24 companies, there were supposed to be about 25% of those phase 1 applicants were to transition over into a phase 2. So far, we've had a pretty high number of folks actually converting into phase 2 wins, which is fantastic. And another cosign for the fact that what we're doing here really has teeth and is helping companies to win significant government traction. From there, the CDI is going to continue and improve this year. 2021 has big things in plans. And part of the reason why we have Jorge here today is to talk a little bit more about those things. So we have a couple of questions here. I want to get into those, but Jorge, I wanted to give you the floor just to maybe outline a couple of things about the strategy for CDI in the coming years. We've had some really strong proof points from 2018 and onwards as we built this program, but I'd love to get your thoughts to tell the community what's in store for 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the all but 2 weeks that I've been here, I've really been looking and really diving deeply into what CDI means and what does it do for our ecosystem, our stakeholders, for entrepreneurs and for our federal stakeholders. And the thing is, it's like, I really do see that it provides a center of gravity that can really build upon the different competencies that are out there in our ecosystem here in Texas, but also across the country. And what we need to do in that Center for Defense and Innovation is start bringing in key stakeholders and partnerships to help, again, move the capabilities that our startups have in the startup economy with a lot of the different industry sectors that are germane to national security objectives, and really kind of bring those stakeholders together. In just recent weeks, I've been talking to prominent partners in the DoD, like NDIA, which is the National Defense Industrial Association. I've also started conversations and speaking more closely with NSIC, our National Security Innovation Council, here in Texas, which are looking for great ways to get the state better integrated and the economic development of that can come to bear with innovation. That's something they're very interested in, and then applying that to national security objectives. And then we have other partners, in the venture community that are also interested in saying, if Capital Factory serves as a pipeline where our startups begin and they can start building deal flow and contracts, right, with the federal government to help de-risk some of the projects they're doing that then can scale into larger programs of record that the government has. Well, we have other investors that are very interested in developing up that back half of that cradle to grave, pipeline that Capital Factory can do for our startups and for our federal partners. So what we're doing with the, going forward is bringing those partnerships together, bringing in that each center of gravity. What I see is requiring 4 pillars. One where you have federal laboratories and university laboratories to be able to provide some of the tech transition expertise to our startups to help bridge the gap in that valley of death that a lot of times our startups find themselves in. I also like to see a lot of non-traditional corporations inside our center of gravities that we develop. So basically, when we all know, like, for example, in space, we all know that Boeing and you've got, larger corporations that actually have been in the launch business for a long time. But how do we bring other non-traditional kind of space companies like Blue Origin, right? Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, obviously, they're doing big things. How do we bring those into the centers of gravity to help incubate and help surround the startups with some of their know-how, and maybe even integrate some of our startups with some of the work and projects that they're doing. But then you're also looking at, our federal defense partners having to be in each one of those centers of gravity. So when we talk about centers of health innovation, for example, how do we plug in our defense partners in the Center of Health and Center for Health Innovation? A lot of times we forget that, again, health is a big part. We have people. What runs the military is not just a weapon system that makes us be able to do what we do, but it's the people behind there, and we have to take care of them. So DoD does have a huge play in health innovation and whatnot. And so what we'd like to do is take these types of capabilities and embed them into the various centers of gravity that we're establishing. And then the Center for Defense Innovation will become basically a hub for all the different players in the federal government to come in jointly and then connect through the spokes that we develop, across the various centers of gravity that we establish. So with that, what I'd like to see is, and kind of build out for Capital Factory and for our entrepreneurs, is a network of networks that really coalesce the different capabilities, and then have the audience and the communication to our investor community groups of trusted capital across the country that can come in and say, we have now found a company that can cross that valley of death. We can help invest in them and fund them in order to be prominent players in the defense industry and the economic expansion programs that we have. So that kind of goes into, hopefully it answers it. Again, I've been on the job over 2 weeks, folks. So I'm working hard to get this written out and actually post it on our website. And we're going to start really debuting with Fed Supernova some of the capabilities that we're going to build out with our centers of gravity, and how the Center for Defense Innovation is going to plug in to those various different areas that are of need for national security. So with that, Helena, I'll move it back to you. I think you said there's a couple questions that we could answer now.
Yes.
I'd love to jump into.
Absolutely. So that transitions really well into the first question that I have here from Alan Apple, I believe is his name. So his question is really around the specific program offerings that Capital Factory has to offer. Does the CDI really focus efforts specifically on cyber opportunities? Or are they looking to other parts of the GovCon ecosystem for different opportunities for the portfolio?
That is a great question, Alan. So that's a question I've gotten all the time. That's a question that I actually asked myself just a few months ago. Are we really concentrating Capital Factory on cyber and cyber alone? The answer is no. The answer moving forward is the cyber is one thing that, again, because of the work that the Air Force did to try to accelerate that was a target of opportunity to help educate our startups to really understand the cyber program and how they can use that, or use America's Seed Fund for that matter, to really bolster their technologies and have an entry point into how they can solidify their product and have the government as a customer. So that cyber is just one way. What I've been looking at and what we're going to develop out is other offerings in the Defense Academy portfolio. One big thing that I have for companies that now begin to mature through the cyber program, that go and get a phase 2 and become successful, I really do see how the Defense Production Act Title III authorities in the government could become another avenue for scaling investment funds, right? So you can scale and go larger, right? And actually become a program of record. And I think by looking and really honing ourselves on some other programs like the Defense Production Act Title III funds, and how we can bring education and bring entry points to those fundings, I think we can offer our startup portfolios a lot more opportunity to get different types of funding to be able to scale their solutions upward and onward. We also have just other things that we really don't talk about, but the day-to-day operations in the military could actually use a lot of defense tech, or even just commercial tech that is out there right now ready to be sold. It's just people don't know about it. And there's something that the Air Force has been using very well, which is the commercial solutions opening, which is a type of solicitation that many, many Air Force bases are now starting to use. So what I'd love to do is also add that to the repertoire. It's like show people how to find these types of commercial solutions offerings that the Air Force puts out, and how to best compete in those. Because again, a lot of these solutions are selected not on just competitiveness on what you're providing on a price, but really just on technical merit. So if you've got a new solution that meets an everyday requirement that the Air Force is looking to fill, just on your technical merit alone, that nobody else is out there doing what you're doing, you can possibly actually get some real contract and deal flows from that. So dollar values could vary. A base might have just a few $1,000s to spend on your solution, but they might also have a few $1 million to spend on that solution. And that's the beauty about the commercial solutions opening, is it just provides you another avenue to be able to get sales, right? And start to building your valuation portfolio through the sales and magnitude of sales that you can do across Air Force, and perhaps even in the future, other DoD partners that also use a commercial solutions opening. So yes, absolutely. They're definitely in the GovCon community. There's a whole lot out there that we can be doing, and we will leverage. So as we build out the Center for Defense Innovation and the programming under our Defense Academy, we will bring to bear a lot of those other avenues, and then start building courseware and mentoring and coaching around those different federal programs that are out there.
Great. So we've got another question, and you mentioned, this question is from Josh Rubin. Aaron, if you want to bring up that question for everyone to look at. Interested in what's the best way for a healthcare company to interface with the DoD? Like you mentioned, there's, the government has reached out and said, we need to tap into these different centers of gravity. So a place like Capital Factory, how would you recommend a healthcare company get involved in that space?
Well, that's a great question. Quite coincidentally, my 20 years of Air Force, I actually worked on the medical side for defense. I worked with the Air Force Medical Commodity Council for a few years and was able to provide kind of enterprise solutions on how they were, contracting out for medical solutions that our hospitals needed across the Air Force. So really where I would start is, connecting with those medical entities. So every, like Army, the Air Force, the Navy, they all have their medical branches. And then you have the larger DoD, so Defense Health Management Services is an Office of Secretary of Defense office that deals with all things health, with VA, with the insurance, with everything that brings military care to the warfighter. So you have, again, the OSD level offices that we could start interacting with. And we also have the agency level offices in the various services that actually purchase things for their hospitals. So what I'd like to do is start making those connections, right? Create partnerships in Capital Factory with people like Defense Health Management Services, and then the buying commands of the various medical agencies or medical units that are inside of our defense agencies. And, just right down the street for right now, perfect example. I believe I'm not sure if it's 772nd or 773rd, but it is an enterprise sourcing squadron in the Air Force that does their strategic buys for medical equipment and services for all of DoD, not all of DoD, all of the Air Force. So that's just right down the street in San Antonio. We also have, over in Fort Sam Houston, we have a very large Army Medical Center. So part of what I'm going to do for Capital Factory is start making those relationships to know that those medical communities should be plugged in to centers of gravity related to health and health innovation. I know for a fact that many of our defense services, we have some great medical and support, and we do have some innovations that come out of the military in the field of medicine. But there's also a lot of commercial technologies and solutions that they have not reached or that they're not aware of. So that through just virtue of creating that Center for Health Innovation and creating that nexus between the Center for Defense Innovation and the Center for Health Innovation in that kind of cross points, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity through the partnerships that we help develop for our startup community, create new avenues to be able to reach in and to understand and to become aware of the needs of defense health. So really great question. Hopefully that answered the question. But yeah, I think over time, as the Center for Health Innovation and CDI start to mature over the next 3 to 6 months, keep an eye out, because there's going to be a lot of interfacing and a lot of intersections that we can develop from a Capital Factory perspective.
That's a great point. And the last thing I would add to that, Jorge, is also, Josh is a member of Capital Factory Ventures. Sit tight. It's coming your way very shortly.
Absolutely.
Coming your way very soon. Let's pull up the next question from Ali Farzbad. So as a founder who doesn't have permanent residency yet, what do you think the approach should be to get synergy with defense applications? How does that work for non-US residents?
Yes. Well, I have looked at this from many different angles. I know we just recently had a case where we have one of just a startup firm that's foreign owned, but the company is U.S. Unfortunately, though, the way the laws are written in the SBIR program specifically, and I would say that defense production is much the same way, that in order to get some of that federal funding that's available to expand different areas of our industry sectors that are waiting right now, you have to show not only ownership, but the owner of the company needs to be a citizen, right? So from a point of permanent residency, I would say just continue to work with the ecosystem to build out what you're building while you're working in parallel to attain that citizenship, right? Or that permanent residency in order to be able to become eligible for some of these federal programs. But that doesn't mean stop what you're doing. I mean, what you bring to the table is awesome, right? And what we want is to see those technologies come to bear and be put forth. So other ways you can do that is, how do you partner perhaps with other companies? So if you partner with another company that becomes maybe 51% equity holder in what you're doing, maybe that is an opportunity. Not sure that you want to do that as a startup. If you're starting your own thing, but the thing is there's different ways you can do that. But unfortunately, I mean, the hard truth is a lot of these federal programs require the ownership of the company and the owners of that company to have U.S. citizenship and be able to prove that before they can be considered for award. So, more to follow on that. I'm always looking at that from different angles. But right now, just the short answer is I haven't really seen a good way to kind of wedge that capability that you bring to bear until, your residency or your citizenship comes through. So, but keep going. I'm rooting for you. We all work together to make this, innovation come to bear across Texas and across America. So thank you for that question.
Another good suggestion could also be, working the venture capital side of things. One of the strong merits of this concept of dual use technology, things that are being used in the government and the commercial sector, is that they have to have strength in the commercial sector. So a really strong way to present yourself as a good target for government synergy is by going out and winning commercial customers, right? Yeah. Working with our innovation council, winning venture capital dollars, raising institutional funding from US investors. That's going to help you a lot as you go out and consider how to do these things. And perhaps that means, working with one of our, prime contractors that's involved in the defense ecosystem here. Maybe that's, working with an investor who can help connect you to the right people. As we're trying to figure out the right path forward for you, there's still absolutely a ton of resources that you can leverage. So definitely don't give up hope, Ali. We've got you here.
Yeah, thank you for that, Helena. I mean, obviously from the venture side, absolutely right. From the federal side, we'll find those avenues to do that. But to your point, Helena, great points there. So, Ali, just stick with us because we'll find pathways. That's what we're all about. Let's find those bridges to help you out.
Yes. Let's pull up the next question from Dave Willocks. Good question about whether or not there's going to be opportunities to engage with DoD prime contractors that are part of the Capital Factory Innovation Council or ecosystem partners on DoD opportunities. What does that currently look like? Yeah,
well, great question too. Those are some of the questions that I kind of came on board with as well. Myself is how do we connect those prime contractors who are part of the Innovation Council or periphery to kind of our innovation ecosystem to these DoD opportunities. There's 1,000, they say in contracting, which is what there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? There's 1,000 ways to execute a contract, to build an agreement together. And I think that there's also a lot of trade space in these professional partnerships that we've established with our DoD prime contractors. I think there's a whole lot of opportunity for our primes to really take a look at, obviously you understand what some of our national security needs are, but how do we look at some of the solution sets that you have can easily and readily provide the federal government by partnering with our startups? How do we create those collisions, right, to be a little bit more forthcoming and a little bit easier to do? And I think as we develop, our ecosystem, I think that's an area that we can really mature and partner with our prime contractors a whole lot more. So I would love to, David, I'm not sure if you're, part of the defense primes or somebody here immediately in the ecosystem. That's something we can talk about. But for those defense partners in the Innovation Council that might be on this call today, I welcome a discussion on how we could do that. How do we bring the prime contractors to bear to partner on some of these DoD opportunities that are coming forth through CIBR, through Defense Production Act, and maybe through other authorities that the federal government is using. So definitely an interesting trade space and definitely a whole lot of opportunity there. Again, it's just all in the spirit of collaboration. How do we best bring our ecosystems together to collaborate in new ways that perhaps we haven't really thought about doing in the past? So I know after 20 years of contracting, I've always scratched my head. Why aren't we working a little bit better together with our defense primes in ways that can bring some of the new tech to bear and still expand the industrial base, right? How can we do that and avoid a certain level of consolidation, So I think we're at the right time. We're at the right time to have the conversations, and I think we have the right personalities and the right drive, right, to be able to make these things happen across Texas with our primes and across the country as well. So great question, David, but really looking forward to helping build that out. If you partner with us, I'd be more than happy to hear any ideas to work it together.
Excellent. Let's pull up the question here from Sujeesh, excuse me. Is the CDI tracking venture funds that are interested in dual-use technologies? And I don't know that Jorge knows the answer to this one, so I can put in a word here. So Jorge's been here 2 weeks, so he might not know the answer to this one. That's okay, because I do. We have a very robust investor relations team whose job is to track and be aware of investors across the United States. They also do a really good job of curating introductions between startups in our portfolio to those investors and making sure that they're actually meeting with investors who care about something that they're working on. So in this respect, one of those areas of interest through which we track investors in our community is dual-use technologies. So short answer is yes, and the best way to get involved there is to be a part of the community, join Capital Factory Ventures, and let us help make some introductions for you.
Absolutely. And hey, I like I said, Helena, she's in deep with the venture side, and she's still educating on me on some of those things that we're working on. But I can tell you that even in the last 2 weeks starting, I've been working and connecting with some of these venture partners out there. More to follow, because I know for a fact there is a lot of interest for some of our venture partners to say, how do we connect from a different angle, right, to scale these dual-use technologies that we're starting to find through the various avenues that we are partnered in the federal government with. So more to follow, and I'm almost certain that once we bring DPA Title III into a workable mechanism for our startup community and for our other corporate partners, I think there's going to be a lot more venture and investment, private investment interest in these dual-use technologies that have larger scale dollars against them. So yeah, stay tuned. More to follow. Thank you, Helena.
Of course. So I believe that's it for the questions right now. If y'all have any other questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat so that my moderators can pass them over to me and we can continue going through them. In the meantime, I'm going to keep going through this deck here that we've prepared, and hopefully this will spark some more questions. Alan, I believe was his name, had previously asked whether or not, we focus exclusively on CIBR. This is just really our jump off point. And we're actually on the second iteration of this program. It's going on right now. We are actually kicking off the CIBR Accelerator with the first assessment day on Friday. And this is designed for companies who have won an AFWERX Phase 1 to come in, meet new defense government customers, meet with potential partners across the industry, and meet venture capital, folks who are interested in investing in dual-use technology, all with the explicit purpose of helping them to go out and close that phase 2 for the next level of their government funding. This program is happening here, like I said, we're kicking it off very soon, and that's a 90-day program that's going to end, very shortly here. It gets started as fast, and it's fast and furious, and it ends almost as quickly as it begins. So that program is going on now, and look out for more updates from us and our awesome partners at Microsoft to talk more about this program.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. I'd like to just add to there, guys. Remember, being part of CIBR Accelerator is great, because we can't win the contract for you, but we can definitely help demystify some of the things that happen, right? So this is definitely a mentoring and education cohort that you could be a part of that will definitely increase your chances of success. You know, one thing that my former general used to call me was a Rosetta Stone, because a lot of times in government contracts or these solicitations, you need somebody just to be able to translate what they're trying to look for and what they're saying needs to be done in your proposal. So that's an area where our Cyber Accelerator is going to thrive, and I'm looking forward to bolstering that program as well. You know, we have our run a show already, so to speak, for the cohort, and we got some great speakers and great sponsorship with Microsoft to provide some of that help and know-how. Again, that's one member of our Innovation Council that's bringing to bear their experience with the federal government to maybe even have some people show us how do we work through some of these proposal writings and what are the things that the government looks for, but also having a lot of the contract expertise in and around that cohort to say, you know, what do we look for when they mean, you know, this evaluation criteria over the other, and what are they really looking for? So that's where the Cyber Accelerator is really valuable. And like I said, I look forward to actually seeing, you know, how we run this one, but then also finding ways to bolstering it out for future Cyber Accelerators. And, you know, just like we have a Cyber Accelerator, I see in the future like a Defense Production Act accelerator, right? Once we really understand and put our hands around that, how do we provide that capability and that know-how to our startups through that type of accelerator? And so this slide is important because it really shows the two product offerings, right? That CDI is showing right now. It's Defense Academy, where you can see there a list of how we bring awareness, information, and relationships and create those relationships. So that's where Defense Academy will build out programming for that for our defense partners and our startups alike. And then Cyber Accelerator, again, is to help our startups and our non-traditional firms that are trying to get some deal flow and maybe get some of their things scaled into program of records. You know, the Cyber Accelerator and maybe soon the Defense Production Act Accelerator are venues in which you can learn, collaborate, and just up your chances of being able to be looked at and perhaps getting a great government contract to help your efforts in scaling your technology. So, you know, I love this slide. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm glad we brought it up because it spurred some questions. So I'm glad that we got around to it. Quick one from Sujesh again. He wants to know whether or not this program is explicitly for SIBRs or STTR as well. And the answer to that today is that it is for SIBR only. In the future, we have plans to expand. Like Jorge said, there's definite merit in SITR applications, and we're doing a lot of work with university partners to explore the best way to support those types of awards. But the program today, the 20.3 SIBR Accelerator Cycle, is only for SIBR Phase 1 winners.
Mm-hmm. And that's for, with good reason. I know that questions come up. It's like, well, why don't we combine those right now? I really do think there's some particular nuances and some things that we have to make sure that we inform our startups well in when it comes to SITRs and those partnerships we have with universities. And right now, you know, some of the people I've been talking to is like the University of Texas system, particularly University of Texas, Dallas, is very interested in a partnership with us. And before I create that SITR accelerator, I'd like to have that type of partnership in there to really bolster the SITR program or SITR accelerator program before we launch that. So more to follow. It will come. And it's a really important program to the federal government as well. And I want to find ways to help bolster and bring attention to that through the SITR accelerator in the near future. So thanks for that. Great question.
Follow-up question from Andrew Scheifel. He wants to know whether or not the SIBR Accelerator and the Center for Defense Innovation, whether it's just for Capital Factory portfolio companies or if this is open to the broader Texas startup ecosystem.
Go ahead, Helena.
It's open to everyone. Yeah, we really built this when we started this as an MVP back in 2018. It was really only available to members of the portfolio, and since then we have scaled it to open it up to everyone. So the SIBR Accelerator is open to anyone who has won an AFWERX Phase 1 SIBR award.
That's right.
Yes, and that's not just in Texas. We have companies that we're working with through that program who are across the country. So again, the emphasis there is for companies who want to take advantage of the Texas ecosystem. Would we love for you to be here? Absolutely. But we live in a distributed world where COVID's a reality, and we recognize that, talent is equally distributed across the United States, not just Texas. So we're working with anyone and everyone as long as you've got a qualified award. Great question. Follow-up question from the same gentleman is, what's the best way to engage with Jorge? Jorge, how can the people get to know you?
I'm probably going to regret this, but hey, send me an email. My calendar gets getting full every single day, but if you look out 2 or 3 weeks, I have some open space. So Jorge Manresa at capitalfactory.com. I'm here to help our startup community and help be that Rosetta Stone for all federal and defense programs that you might be interested in participating with. So feel free to send me an email. Like I said, I'll probably get 1,000 emails, but it's okay. There's a lot of hours in the day, and I'm sure I'll get to it. So yeah, please, by all means, do that. If not, you can always connect with Helena as well. And there's other folks in the ecosystem that we're building out. We have Sean Duffy that can also assist. So we have several people that can help. But for me, for certain, feel free to send me an email, open door policy. I love to help all startups and all members of our startup community, as well as our defense partners and our corporate partners. So anytime you're in town, I know, right now we're still kind of in COVID ops. So, right now the best way to do is to set up a teleconference, and I'd be more than happy to fill that in. But as the city opens up, hopefully in the next few months, I'd love to meet all you guys in person. So, aside from the email, don't hesitate to take up some time. Let's see if we can do a little social distancing at Capital Factory itself, and maybe start working like we all were used to and love to do. So love to meet some of y'all in person.
That's great, Jorge. And some other suggestions for folks looking to get involved virtually. We've got a really strong virtual presence. So whether that's getting involved in our co-working community, that's fully virtual. Once the physical spaces are fully, they are open right now, but once we're back to fully operational, the post-COVID numbers, you're welcome to come back in. And in the meantime, we are fully digital. We have a very active Slack channel and community with questions, AMAs, mentor meetings happening regularly, thousands of times a day. A good way to also get involved there is via our Twitter and LinkedIn communities. All of us are available online and posting all of this content for you online. That's a really good other way to engage. And then another one, I don't know if we can actually post a link to this, but we have open coffee that happens, I believe it's once a week with the community. And it's a chance for you to come in, get to know Capital Factory, get to know Capital Factory Ventures and some of the directors, and really ask to see, where you might be a good fit. And I do really highly recommend, if you're not engaged with those things already, you reach out, get involved, get to know some of this team, and let us help figure out where's the best place to plug you in. All of that being said, Jorge, we've got 2 minutes left. So I want to make sure that we ask the most important question, which I want to make sure that we ask everyone in the defense AMAs going forward. What is the number one technology, defense or otherwise, that you are super hyped about? Tell us a little bit about it.
Oh my gosh, you bring that up. Oh, you're going to see the nerd in me wants to say, I want to bring in the Jetsons era, right? So the flying car, bringing that technology to bear. I want to see in the city of Austin the first vertiport, right? And I want to see, even people in our own Capital Factory community, hopefully in the next couple of years, commuting in these flying orbs, they call them, right? Between the Center for Autonomous Robotics and Capital Factory, that would be phenomenal. So yeah, I'm a nerd for the Jetsons era. I love the Jetsons. I grew up with the Jetsons. And if I could do anything to help accelerate that in any way, shape, or fashion, that's really where my heart lies. So, for all you startups that are looking at not only, hey, the flying car orbs, but maybe the infrastructure that supports that, the economy that will be built up around that, feel free to call me, because I'd love to see how we plug you in and help accelerate this technology. And hey, by the way, something that just kind of came up in my mind, I don't know, crazy thing. I don't know if we have a poll up on the screen or not, but wouldn't it be cool to have like a flying car race? just like we did back Colio Trophy, having air races back in the day. It'd be so awesome, over here at the racetrack at Coda. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure that out. Get creative and maybe do the first ever flying car race around a track. That'd be super awesome. Maybe in the coming years. But yeah, flying cars and everything that surrounds that is where my heart is. And I think there's going to be a big economy for that. Transportation and that new technology and battery power that will power that transportation is going to be a huge economic sector in which people are going to want to keep a thumb on, because that's going to be exciting, and I'm excited about it. So thanks. Great question.
Awesome. Well, we're excited with you, and let's make it happen.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, everyone. Please feel free to get connected with both Jorge and myself on LinkedIn, on email. We're looking forward to getting caught up with you and hopefully getting you into the Center for Defense Innovation.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Stay safe, stay healthy. Talk to y'all later.
Bye, y'all.